3 days after the fight, Torval visited Daewon's workshop. The war chief had to duck to fit through the door. He looked around at the tools and equipment with curiosity. This was the home of the human who had defeated him. It was small and cluttered and smelled like oil. Nothing like a warrior's quarters. Daewon offered him tea. Torval accepted. They sat across from each other. Korhan watched from the workbench. The dragon had grown again. Now it was the size of a large dog. Its presence filled the room with warmth and ancient power. Torval spoke first. He said he had spent the last few days thinking. His pride had been hurt by the loss. But more than that, his understanding had been shaken. He came from a long line of warriors. His ancestors had performed the Drakthar rituals. They had all failed to bond with the dragons. For generations, his people believed it was because no Krathian was worthy enough, strong enough, brave enough. Now he knew the truth. They had been doing the ritual wrong. All of them. For centuries. They had been so focused on proving their strength that they forgot to show respect. They saw the dragons as challenges to overcome instead of partners to honor. He asked Daewon how a human understood what so many warrior species had missed. Daewon said he did not understand it at first either. He just saw a creature that looked sad and bought it, because it seemed wrong to leave it in a cage. Everything else happened naturally. He treated Korhan the way he would want to be treated. With respect and kindness, Korhan sent thoughts through the bond. The dragon gave Daewon permission to share the full truth, so Daewon explained what Korhan had shown him. The Drakthar were not just ceremonial creatures. They were guardians, ancient beings placed throughout the galaxy to find worthy partners. Partners who understood that true strength came from character, not combat, from compassion, not conquest. The ritual had never been about sacrifice or dominance. It had been a test. Would the warrior see the dragon as a tool to use or as a being to respect? Most failed the test because they approached it with arrogance. They believed their strength made them worthy. They did not understand that worthiness came from how they treated those weaker than themselves. Torval listened in silence. When Daewon finished, the war chief sat for a long time without speaking. Finally, he said he would bring this knowledge back to his people. The Krathians prided themselves on honor. Real honor. Not the false honor of dominance. Perhaps his people could learn the true way again. Then he asked the question Daewon had been expecting. Were there other Drakthar? Other dragons waiting to be found? Korhan answered through Daewon, yes, many others, scattered across the galaxy. Most were in cages like Korhan had been, dismissed as broken, waiting for someone who could pass the test. Waiting for partners who understood respect, Torval stood to leave. Before he left, he placed his fist over his heart in salute. He said Daewon had given him a great gift, not defeat in combat, understanding. He would not forget it. If Daewon ever needed help, he had only to call. The Krathian Pride Fleet would answer. After Torval left, Daewon sat in his workshop for a long time. He looked at his tools, his workbench, the navigation computer he had been repairing. This was his life. Simple, honest, comfortable. He fixed machines and earned enough money to live. It was not exciting, but it was enough. But things had changed. Korhan had changed him. The fight had changed him. He could not just go back to his old life and pretend nothing happened. Korhan sent a question through their bond. What did Daewon want to do now? Daewon did not know. He was a mechanic, not an adventurer, not a hero. He liked fixing things in his workshop. Going out to find dragons across the galaxy sounded dangerous and difficult and exhausting. But he remembered looking at Korhan in that cage, dismissed as worthless, waiting for someone who could see the truth. If there were other dragons like that, other creatures waiting in darkness for someone to show them respect, could he just ignore them? Could he stay here knowing they were out there? He thought about it for 3 days. During that time, Misun visited often. She brought food and company. She did not push him to decide anything. She just listened when he needed to talk. On the 3rd day, he made his decision. He would go. He would try to find the other Drakthar. Not because he wanted glory or adventure, because he remembered looking into Korhan's eyes and seeing intelligence that everyone else had dismissed. Because if he could help even one more creature like Korhan, it would be worth it. When he told Misun his decision, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said she was going with him. He tried to argue. This was not her responsibility. She had a good job and a safe life here on the station. But she refused to listen. She said he would need help. Someone to watch his back. Someone who understood tactics and security. Someone who was also his friend. Daewon smiled. He said okay. He would be glad to have her company. They spent the next week preparing. Daewon sold most of his tools and equipment. He bought a small ship. Nothing fancy. Just a reliable transport vessel with a good engine and basic living quarters. He used the money from selling the navigation computer and the reward from other repair jobs. It was just enough. Mi-sun quit her job with station security. She packed her equipment and said goodbye to her co-workers. Some thought she was crazy, leaving a stable job to go chasing dragons with a mechanic, but she did not care what they thought. On the last day before they left, Daewon went back to the market. He found Zoltar's stall. The Vrexian merchant was surprised to see him. He had heard about the fight with Torval. Everyone on the station had heard about it. He said he never expected the worthless dragon to amount to anything. He congratulated Daewon on his luck. Daewon looked at the stall, at all the old weapons and broken equipment, at the cages in the corner where Korhan had been. He asked Zoltar if he ever wondered what else might be valuable that he was missing, if maybe there were other treasures hidden among the junk he dismissed. Zoltar's skin changed colors. Thoughtful blue. He looked at his stall with new eyes. He said maybe there were. He had never really looked that carefully before. Daewon smiled and left. Behind him, Zoltar stood in front of the empty cage. He stared at it for a long time. Then he put up a new sign. It said, "Value is found not in the price, but in the recognition of worth." The next morning, Daewon and Mi-sun boarded their ship. It was small and cramped. The engine made strange noises. The navigation system was outdated, but it was theirs. Korhan settled into the cargo area, which they had converted into a comfortable space for the dragon. As they prepared to launch, Daewon felt nervous. He was leaving the only home he had known for years, going into unknown space to search for creatures that might not want to be found. It was crazy, dangerous, probably impossible, but Korhan sent warmth and confidence through their bond. Mi-sun sat in the co-pilot seat and gave him a thumbs up. They were ready. Together they would figure it out. Daewon activated the launch sequence. The ship lifted off from Nexus Station 7. Through the view screen he watched the station grow smaller. All those people buying and selling and living their lives. He had been one of them just a few weeks ago. A simple mechanic with a simple life. Now he was something else. Not a hero. Not a warrior. Just someone who believed that worth came from respect, and that overlooked things often held the most value. Through Korhan's connection, he felt other Drakthar across the galaxy. Distant presences, sleeping, waiting, hoping that someone would finally understand. Someone would finally pass the test. Someone would show them the respect they deserved. The ship entered hyperspace. Stars streaked past the view screen. The journey had begun. Across the galaxy, in dark corners and forgotten markets, dragons stirred in their cages. They sensed something. Change coming. Hope returning. One of their kind had bonded. One had found a worthy partner. This meant others might follow. The old ways might be remembered. The true meaning of the ritual might be restored. In warrior halls on a dozen worlds, species that had tried and failed the Drakthar ritual heard the news. A human had succeeded. A mechanic who showed respect instead of dominance. Some dismissed it as luck. Others began to wonder, to question, to think about what true worthiness really meant. Back on Nexus Station 7, Zoltar stood in his market stall. He looked at his merchandise with new eyes. A cracked sword that nobody wanted. What if it had historical value? A broken shield with strange markings. What if it was from an important battle? A damaged data core. What if it contained lost knowledge? For the first time in his long life, he began to look deeper, to see beyond the surface, to recognize that value was not always obvious. Sometimes the most important things came in small packages. Sometimes the greatest treasures were dismissed as worthless. Sometimes the most powerful beings waited in cages for someone to show them simple respect. In hyperspace, Daewon checked their course. They were heading to a station 3 systems away. Korhan had sensed another Drakthar there, another dragon waiting, another chance to restore what had been lost. Mi-sun asked if he was scared. He thought about it. Then he smiled. He said yes, he was scared, But he was also hopeful. They were doing something that mattered. Something that could help restore understanding across the galaxy. That was worth being scared for. Korhan made a sound. Torval's first attack came fast. His forearms reached out like a trap closing. He wanted to grab Daewon and crush him quickly, show everyone that humans were weak, end this insult to Krathian honor. But Daewon was not there. He ducked under the reaching arms and rolled to the side. Torval's hands closed on empty air. The crowd made surprised sounds. They had expected the human to be caught immediately. Torval turned and attacked again. This time he was faster, more aggressive. 2 arms grabbed for Daewon's legs while the other 2 aimed at his chest. It was a classic Krathian technique. Impossible to dodge. Daewon jumped backward. Torval's lower arms caught his ankle, but the grip was weak. Daewon twisted and pulled free. He kept moving, staying just out of reach. The crowd started to murmur. Some laughed. They thought the human was running away, showing cowardice, but Daewon was not running. He was analyzing. Through his bond with Korhan, his senses were sharper. He could see details he would normally miss. He watched how Torval moved, which arm led each attack, how the war chief shifted his weight, where his eyes focused before he struck. Patterns. Everything had patterns. Torval's third arm always moved first when he tried to grab. His right foot always planted before his power strikes. His eyes telegraphed his intentions half a second before his body moved. These were weaknesses, small ones, but exploitable. Torval roared in frustration. He charged again. This time he abandoned careful technique. He just wanted to catch this annoying human who kept dodging. His arm swung wild. His movements became less controlled. Daewon saw his chance. As Torval's right arm swung high, Daewon ducked under it and moved close. Too close for Torval to grab properly. He struck at a pressure point Misun had taught him. The spot where the Krathian's lower left arm connected to his torso. It was not a powerful strike. Daewon was not strong enough to hurt Torval seriously, but the pressure point worked. Torval's lower left arm went numb for a second. The war chief stumbled, surprised. No one had gotten close enough to strike him before. Daewon did not stay to celebrate. He rolled away and kept distance. Torval recovered quickly. The numbness faded. His arm worked again. But now he was angry. Really angry. His eyes burned with rage. The war chief spoke for the first time. His voice was deep and full of contempt. He said Daewon fought like a coward, running and hiding instead of meeting him with honor. This was why humans would never be true warriors. Daewon did not answer. He was breathing hard. Even with Korhan's gifts, his body was getting tired. Dodging used a lot of energy. He could not keep this up forever. He needed to execute his plan soon, or he would lose from exhaustion. Through their bond, Korhan sent encouragement. The dragon showed him his own movements from a different angle. Daewon could see through Korhan's eyes in the viewing area. He saw Torval from above and behind. He saw the patterns even more clearly from this perspective. Torval attacked again. More controlled this time. He had learned that wild swings did not work. He used proper Krathian combat forms, beautiful and deadly techniques perfected over thousands of years. He drove Daewon toward the arena wall, cutting off escape routes. Daewon let himself be driven back. This was part of his plan. He needed Torval confident, aggressive, committed to a full attack. When his back was almost to the wall, he stopped retreating. He stood his ground. Torval smiled. He thought he had won. The human had nowhere left to run. The war chief launched his finishing move. All 4 arms striking together. A technique called the crushing wave. No escape, no defense. Just overwhelming power that broke opponents in seconds. Daewon waited. Through Korhan's eyes, he saw Torval's weight shift to his right foot. That foot always planted first before the crushing wave. It was a tiny tell, a mechanical flaw in the pattern. 1 second before the arm struck, that foot would be locked in place. Torval's momentum would be committed. He could not change direction. The right foot planted now. Daewon dropped and rolled left. Not back, not away. Left along the wall. Torval's 4 arms smashed into the wall where Daewon had been standing. The wall cracked from the impact. The crowd gasped. Torval was off balance. His arms were extended. His right side was exposed. His momentum carried him forward into the wall. For one moment he was vulnerable. Daewon moved without thinking. His body acted on training and instinct. He struck the pressure point on Torval's right leg, the one Misun had shown him. the one that would make the leg buckle. Torval's leg gave out. The massive war chief fell to one knee. His balance was gone. He tried to push himself up with his arms, but Daewon was already moving. He grabbed one of the pillars in the arena and used it as leverage. He kicked at Torval's head, not hard enough to cause serious damage, just enough to knock him off balance completely. Torval fell. He crashed onto his side. The arena shook. The crowd was completely silent. No one could believe what they were seeing. A Krathian war chief on the ground, beaten by a human mechanic. Daewon stood over him. His chest heaved. His muscles burned. But through Korhan's bond, he felt strong enough to finish this. He could strike at Torval's throat, end the fight with a killing blow. That was what the rules allowed. That was what everyone expected. But Daewon was not a killer. He was a mechanic. He fixed things. He did not break them. He stepped back. He extended his hand to Torval, just like he had extended his hand to Korhan when he opened the cage. Just like he had shown respect by kneeling. He offered help to someone who had tried to kill him. Torval stared at the offered hand. His face showed confusion, anger, pride, shame, 1,000 emotions fighting each other. The crowd held its breath. Everyone waited to see what would happen. Seconds passed. Long seconds that felt like hours. Torval looked at Daewon's face. He saw no mockery there. No superiority. Just honesty. Just respect. The same respect that had awakened a dragon that everyone thought was broken. Slowly, Torval reached up. He took Daewon's hand. The human pulled, though he could not really help lift the massive Krathian. Torval stood on his own power. He towered over Daewon. For a moment, nobody knew what he would do. Then Torval bowed. It was a formal Krathian bow. Deep and respectful. The bow warriors gave to equals, to those who had earned honor through their actions. The war chief spoke. His voice carried across the silent arena. He said he had come expecting to teach a lesson to an arrogant human. Instead, he had been taught a lesson himself. True warrior spirit was not about strength or dominance. It was about protecting what mattered, about showing courage in the face of death, about offering respect even to enemies. He said Daewon Kim had shown more honor in this fight than many Krathians showed in a lifetime. The dragon had chosen well. He publicly declared that the challenge was satisfied. Daewon had proven his worth. No one could question his bond with Korhan. The arena erupted. Some people cheered. Some argued. Some sat in shocked silence. The Krathian warriors in the viewing area stood and struck their fists against their chests. This was their salute. Their acknowledgement of a fighter who had earned respect. Mi-sun rushed onto the arena floor. She hugged Daewon hard enough to hurt. She was laughing and crying at the same time. She said she could not believe it. She had watched the whole thing and still could not believe it. Korhan flew down and landed on Daewon's shoulder. The dragon was larger than before. Its scales gleamed brilliant red and gold. It sent waves of pride and joy through their bond. Daewon felt the emotion so strongly it brought tears to his eyes. Torval watched them. Then he spoke again. He said his ship would leave tomorrow. But before he left, he wanted to speak with Daewon privately. There were things he needed to know. Things about the old ways, the true ways, things that had been forgotten. Daewon agreed. He was too tired to think clearly right now. But tomorrow he would meet with Torval. He would share what Korhan had taught him. Maybe together they could help others remember what the rituals truly meant. The crowd slowly dispersed. People talked excitedly. The betting pools had all lost. Nobody had predicted this outcome. A human had defeated a Krathian war chief, not through superior strength or fighting skill, through intelligence, adaptability, and respect. Some species dismissed it as luck. Others recognized something important had happened. Humanity had proven they belonged in the galaxy, not as warriors who conquered through force, but as people who solved problems, showed compassion, and earned respect through character. Mi-sun helped Daewon walk back to his workshop. His adrenaline was fading. His body hurt everywhere. Even with Korhan's enhanced healing, he would be sore for days. But he had survived. More than survived, he had won. That night he slept deeply. Korhan curled up next to him, warm and solid and real. In his dreams, Daewon saw ancient times, other Drakthar dragons waiting in cages across the galaxy, waiting for worthy partners, waiting for someone to remember the true meaning of respect. He did not know it yet, but his life was about to change completely. The fight with Torval was just the beginning. Soon he would face a choice that would take him far from his simple workshop. A choice that would help restore something the galaxy had lost. A choice that would make him something more than a mechanic. But for now he slept. And dreamed of dragons. The news spread fast. By the next morning, everyone on Nexus Station 7 knew that a human had bonded with a Drakthar dragon. Daewon found out how fast when someone banged on his workshop door at 6 in the morning. He opened the door. A security officer stood there. Her name was Mi-sun Park. She was human, from Korea like him. They had met a few times at the station's human community gatherings. She was nice but serious. Good at her job. Mi-sun pushed past him into the workshop. She closed the door and locked it. Her face was worried. She said they had a problem. A big problem. Daewon asked what kind of problem, Mi-sun explained. Yesterday, people in the engineering section heard a roar. Security checked the surveillance cameras. They saw light coming from Daewon's workshop. They ran the audio through analysis. The sound matched historical records of Drakthar dragons. Word got out. Now half the station was talking about it. Worse, a Krathian war party had arrived on the station 3 hours ago. Krathians were famous warriors. Their culture was built on combat and honor. Their leader was a war chief named Torval. He was asking questions about the human who bonded with the dragon. Daewon felt cold. He asked if the Krathians wanted to hurt him. Mi-sun said it was worse than that. Krathians believed they were the true inheritors of the ancient warrior traditions. They believed Drakthar dragons could only bond with the strongest fighters. A human mechanic bonding with one was an insult to everything they believed. Torval was going to challenge Daewon. Traditional combat. To the death, Daewon sat down. His legs felt weak. He said he was not a fighter. He could not win against a Krathian war chief. It was impossible, Mi-sun agreed. In a fair fight, Daewon would lose in seconds. Krathians were bigger, stronger, and trained for combat their entire lives. But station law recognized traditional challenges. If Torval issued the challenge properly, Daewon would have to accept or be exiled from the station. Korhan, who had been sleeping in the corner, stood up. The dragon walked over and sat next to Daewon. It sent feelings through their bond. Calm, confidence, support. Mi-sun stared at Korhan. She said it was beautiful. She had seen pictures of Drakthar dragons, but never a real one. Then she shook her head and focused. She said Daewon had maybe 2 days before Torval made the official challenge. That gave them time to prepare. Daewon asked how to prepare to fight someone who was twice his size and trained to kill. Mi-sun said they would train. She was a security officer. She knew combat. Not as well as a Krathian war chief, but better than nothing. She would teach him what she could. The rest would be up to him and Korhan. The next 2 days were the hardest of Daewon's life. Mi-sun came to his workshop every morning before her shift. She taught him how to stand, how to move, how to dodge, how to use his smaller size as an advantage. She taught him pressure points where a strike would hurt even a big opponent. She taught him how to fall without breaking bones. Daewon was terrible at all of it. He was slow and clumsy. He got tired fast. He fell down a lot. Mi-sun was patient but honest. She said he would probably lose, but at least he would lose with dignity instead of dying without trying. During the afternoons when Mi-sun was at work, Korhan helped. The dragons shared memories through their bond. Ancient battles. Old techniques. But more than that, Korhan shared understanding. How to read an opponent. How to see patterns in movement. How to know what someone would do before they did it. Korhan also explained the bond's gifts. Daewon would heal faster than normal humans. His reflexes would be quicker. His senses would be sharper. He could share Korhan's vision, seeing from both his eyes and the dragon's eyes at once. It would not make him a great fighter, but it would give him a chance. On the second night, Daewon could not sleep. He sat at his workbench and looked at his tools. Wrenches, diagnostic scanners, circuit boards. These were his weapons. These were what he understood. Fighting made no sense to him. Fighting was chaos and pain and luck. Then he had an idea. Fighting might be chaos, but chaos had patterns. Everything had patterns. Machines had patterns. Circuits had patterns. People had patterns too. He pulled up his computer and started researching. He found video archives of Krathian combat tournaments. He watched hours of footage. He saw how they fought. Forearms gave them many options, but most Krathians use similar techniques. They like to grab with their lower arms and strike with their upper arms. They led with power instead of speed. They followed traditional forms that were thousands of years old. Traditional forms meant predictable patterns. Predictable patterns meant exploitable weaknesses. Daewon started taking notes. He drew diagrams. He calculated angles and timing. He treated the problem like he would treat a broken machine. Find the flaw, plan the fix, execute carefully. By morning he had a plan. It was risky. It would probably fail, but it was better than nothing. Misun arrived for their training session. Daewon showed her his notes. She studied them carefully. Then she smiled. She said it might actually work. It was crazy and desperate and depended on perfect timing, but it might work. They spent the day practicing the plan. Over and over. Korhan watched and helped, showing Daewon when his timing was off, guiding him through the bond. By evening, Daewon could execute the moves smoothly. Whether it would work against a real opponent was another question. That night, the challenge came. A message appeared on Daewon's computer. Torval, war chief of the Krathian Pride Fleet, formally challenged Daewon Kim to trial by combat. The terms were traditional: unarmed fighting, no weapons, fight until one opponent yields or dies. The combat would take place in the station's ceremonial arena in 24 hours. Refusal would mean exile from Nexus Station 7 and all allied stations. Daewon had no choice. He accepted the challenge. News spread instantly. By midnight, everyone on the station knew. Betting pools started. Most people bet on Torval winning in under 30 seconds. A few optimists gave Daewon a full minute. Nobody bet on him winning. The next day passed slowly. Daewon tried to work but could not focus. He tried to eat but was not hungry. He tried to rest but could not stop thinking about the fight. Korhan stayed close, sending calm feelings through their bond. Misun came by in the afternoon and made him practice the plan one more time. Finally, it was time. Daewon put on his modified work coveralls. They were flexible and comfortable. Better than armor he did not know how to use. Misun walked with him to the arena. Korhan rode on his shoulder, small and light. The ceremonial arena was huge. Thousands of people filled the viewing seats. Aliens from dozens of species. All of them wanted to see the fight. Some were curious. Some were excited. Many were there to watch the arrogant human die. The arena floor was open space with some pillars for decoration. No weapons. No cover except the pillars. Just open ground and tradition. Torval was already there. He was massive. 3 meters tall with 4 arms thick with muscle. His skin was gray and covered with scars from old battles. His eyes were cold and certain. He looked at Daewon the way someone might look at an insect. With contempt and boredom, Misun squeezed Daewon's shoulder. She told him to remember the plan. Remember his training. Remember he was not trying to beat Torval at fighting. He was trying to solve a problem. She said she believed in him. Daewon nodded. Korhan sent a wave of warmth and confidence through their bond. The dragon flew off his shoulder and landed in the viewing area next to Misun. This was Daewon's fight, but Korhan would be watching. Supporting him through their connection. A station official announced the terms. Traditional combat. No rules except no weapons. Fight until yield or death. Both fighters acknowledged the terms. The official stepped back. The arena lights focused on the fighting space. Thousands of eyes watched. Thousands of voices became silent. The moment stretched out. Daewon could hear his own heartbeat. He could feel Korhan's presence in his mind. He could see Misun watching from the side. The official raised his hand. Then he dropped it. The fight began. Torval charged. Forearms reaching. Mouth open in a war cry. Fast for his size. Impossibly strong. Coming to end this in seconds and prove that humans were weak. Daewon took a breath. He remembered his training. He remembered his plan. He remembered that he was a mechanic, not a warrior. And sometimes mechanics survived by being smart instead of strong. He started moving. 7 days passed. The dragon ate well and slept in the warm nest. Its scales started to shine. Not bright yet, but better than the dull gray they had been. The tears in its wings began to heal with the medical gel Daewon applied every morning and evening. Daewon talked to the dragon while he worked. He told it about the ships he repaired and the people he met. He explained how gravity drives worked and why plasma coils always burned out in cheap engines. The dragon listened. Sometimes it made small sounds. Sometimes it just watched with those intelligent eyes. On the 8th day, a difficult job came in. A salvage crew brought him a crashed exploration ship's main computer. The whole thing was damaged. Water had gotten into the circuits. The memory core was cracked. It looked impossible to fix. But the salvage crew was paying 500 credits if he could recover the navigation data. The ship had been mapping an unexplored sector when it crashed. That data was worth a fortune to the exploration company. Day one needed the money. His rent was due in 3 days. He set up the computer on his workbench. He opened the casing and stared at the mess inside. Burnt circuits, corroded connections, cracked chips. He had to find a way to power it up without causing more damage. He had to extract the data before the whole thing fell apart. Hours passed. Day one tried different approaches. Each one failed. The computer was too damaged. The connections were too fragile. Every time he thought he found a solution, something else broke. His back hurt. His eyes were tired. His hands were shaking from too much coffee and not enough sleep. He pushed his chair back and rubbed his face. Maybe this job was impossible. Maybe he should give up and tell the salvage crew he could not do it. The dragon was sitting on the workbench watching him. It had been there all day, quiet and patient. Now it made a sound, a soft chirp, like it was asking if he was okay. Day one smiled despite his frustration. He said he was fine, just stuck on a problem. He needed to look at the lower circuit board, but the angle was wrong. He slid off his chair and knelt down on the floor to see the bottom of the computer better. From this angle, he could see where the water damage had spread. There was a bypass route he had not noticed before. If he rerouted the power through the secondary channels, he might be able to avoid the damaged sections entirely. It would work. He knew it would work. He looked up at the dragon to share his excitement. The dragon was staring at him. Its head was raised high. Its body was very still. Day one realized he was kneeling at eye level with the creature. Without thinking about it, he had bowed his head slightly when he looked up. Just a small movement. Just a natural thing people did when they wanted to show they were paying attention. The dragon's reaction was instant and shocking. Its wings spread wide. They were not torn anymore. They were whole and strong and much bigger than Day one had thought possible. The dragon's body seemed to grow. Its scales began to glow. Colors rippled across its body like fire. Gray became silver. Silver became gold. Gold became crimson. The dull creature from the cage was gone. This was something else. Something magnificent. Then the dragon roared. The sound was not loud, not in the normal way. It did not hurt Day one's ears. But it shook his chest. It vibrated through his bones. It felt like the roar went directly into his mind, bypassing his ears completely. Tools rattled on the walls. The computer screen flickered. The lights dimmed for a moment. The roar felt ancient. It felt powerful. It felt like the sound the universe made when it was born. Then it stopped. The dragon folded its wings. The glow faded from its scales, but it did not go back to gray. Now it was a deep red with hints of gold. Beautiful. Strong. Real Day one was still kneeling on the floor. His mouth was open. His heart was pounding. He did not know what had just happened, but he knew it was important. The dragon looked at him. Its eyes were different now. Still intelligent, but also warm, approving. It made a sound, not a roar this time. Something gentler, something that sounded like satisfaction. Then something strange happened. A voice spoke in Day one's mind. It was not a voice he heard with his ears. It was a voice he felt in his thoughts, clear and strong and very old. The voice said one word. A name. Korhan. Day one understood. The dragon's name was Korhan. He spoke out loud. His voice was shaky. He said hello to Korhan. He said his own name was Day one Kim. He was a mechanic. He was sorry if he did something wrong. The voice in his mind spoke again. It said Day one had done nothing wrong. He had done something right, something that no one had done in centuries. Day one asked what he had done. Korhan sent images into his mind. Old memories, ancient times, warriors who bought Drakthar dragons to prove their strength. But the ritual had been wrong. Everyone had gotten it wrong. The ceremony was not about killing the dragon. It was not about proving dominance through combat. It was about respect. The original ritual required a warrior to kneel before the dragon, to bow their head, to show that they understood the dragon was not a thing to be used. It was a being to be honored, a partner, not a tool. Only when a warrior showed this respect would the dragon bond with them. Only then would the dragon share its power. But over the centuries, the ritual changed. Warriors started to believe they had to defeat the dragon. They believed kneeling was weakness. They believed respect was submission. So they came with weapons and aggression. They came expecting the dragon to fight back so they could prove their strength by winning. The dragons refused. They would not participate in this twisted version of the ceremony. They would rather be called broken and useless than bond with someone who saw them as an enemy to defeat. Daewon had not known any of this. He had not tried to perform the ceremony. He had just been looking at a computer. He had knelt down to get a better angle. He had bowed his head because he was tired and frustrated and needed a moment. It was an accident. But Korhan sent a feeling through their new connection. It was not an accident. Daewon had shown respect from the very beginning. He saw a creature in a cage and thought it deserved better. He bought it not to use it, but to help it. He fed it and healed it and talked to it like an equal. He deleted the ceremony instructions because he had no interest in proving anything. He just wanted to fix what was broken. That was why Korhan chose him. Not for his strength, not for his fighting skill, for his character. Daewon sat back on his heels. He looked at Korhan, who was now sitting calmly on the workbench. The dragon was bigger than before, but still not huge, maybe the size of a medium dog. Its scales gleamed red and gold in the workshop lights. He asked what happened now. Korhan sent more feelings and images. They were bonded now, partners. Korhan would share its gifts with Daewon. Enhanced senses, faster healing, greater strength, not superhuman but better than before. In return, Daewon would carry Korhan's legacy forward. He would show others what the ritual truly meant. Daewon asked if he had to fight anyone. Korhan sent something that felt like laughter. Not unless Daewon wanted to. The bond was not about combat. It was about partnership, about respect, about recognizing worth in others. Daewon felt relief. He was not a fighter. He was a mechanic. That was enough. He stood up and stretched. His back did not hurt anymore. His eyes were not tired. His hands were steady. He felt good. Better than good. He felt clear and focused and ready to work. He turned back to the damaged computer. The problem that had seemed impossible 10 minutes ago now seemed simple. He could see exactly what needed to be done. His hands moved with confidence. He rerouted the power. He bypassed the damaged sections. He carefully extracted the memory core. 2 hours later, the navigation data was recovered. All of it. Perfect and complete. The salvage crew would be very happy. Daewon would get his 500 credits and have enough left over for rent and food and supplies for Korhan. He looked at Korhan. The dragon was watching him with those intelligent eyes. Daewon smiled. He said thank you. He was not sure if the bond had helped him fix the computer or if he had just figured it out on his own. But either way, he was grateful for the company. Korhan sent a wave of warmth through their connection. It felt like approval, like friendship. Daewon cleaned up his workspace. He prepared dinner for both of them, synthetic meat for Korhan, rice and vegetables for himself. They ate together in comfortable silence. Outside the window, Nexus Station 7 continued its endless cycle of buying and selling and living. Inside the workshop, a human and a dragon shared their first meal as partners. Neither of them knew that everything was about to change. Neither of them knew that Korhan's roar had been heard throughout the engineering section. Neither of them knew that news was already spreading through the station. A human had bonded with a Drakthar dragon. The impossible had happened, and very soon, others would come to challenge it. Daewon Kim walked through the crowded market with his hands in his pockets. The lower levels of Nexus Station 7 always smelled like oil, burnt circuits, and too many alien species packed into one place. He liked it here. Nobody cared that he was human. Nobody asked questions. They just wanted to buy or sell. He stopped at a food stall and bought a protein bar that tasted like cardboard. 3 credits gone. He had 27 left until payday. Not enough for the new power converter he needed, but enough to look around. Maybe he would find something useful in the scrap dealers section. The scrap section was his favorite. Old ship parts, broken tools, damaged weapons that nobody wanted anymore. Daewon had good eyes for these things. He could see what others missed. A cracked plasma coil that just needed rewiring. A burnt-out computer core with salvageable memory chips. He made extra money fixing junk and selling it back to the dealers. Today, the market was busier than usual. A Vrexian merchant had set up a large stall near the back wall. Vrexians had forearms and blue skin that changed shades when they lied. This one was bright blue, which meant he was probably honest. Or at least not lying right now. The stall was full of old weapons. Swords that glowed with energy, shields that hummed with power fields. Armor sets from a dozen different warrior cultures. Daewon did not care about weapons. He was a mechanic, not a fighter. But something caught his eye. In the corner, behind a stack of rusted blades, was a cage. It was small, about the size of a shipping crate. Inside the cage was a creature that looked like a dragon from old Earth stories. But this dragon was tiny, no bigger than a cat. Its scales were gray and dull. Its wings had tears in them. It sat with its head down, not moving. Above the cage, a holographic sign blinked in red letters. It said Ceremonial Dragon. Last chance. 3 credits, 3 credits. The same price as his protein bar. Daewon moved closer. The Vrexian merchant noticed him and waved 2 of his 4 arms. His name was Zoltar, according to the sign on his stall. Zoltar's skin shifted to a lighter blue, a selling color. He pointed at the dragon cage. His voice was rough like gravel in a grinder. He said the dragon was from an old species called the Drakthar. Very rare, very special. Once used by ancient warriors for sacred ceremonies. Daewon asked what kind of ceremonies. Zoltar laughed. It was not a nice laugh. He explained that warriors used to buy these dragons to prove their strength. They would perform a ritual sacrifice, kill the dragon in single combat. If the warrior won, it meant they were brave and worthy. If the dragon won, well, that never happened. Dragons were bred to lose. But this dragon, Zoltar said with disgust, was broken. Defective. 5 different buyers had tried the ceremony. 5 warriors from 5 different species. Each time the dragon just sat there. It would not fight, would not defend itself, would not even try to look dangerous. The warriors felt insulted. They returned the dragon and demanded their money back. Now Zoltar just wanted to get rid of it. 3 credits. Final offer. After today, he would throw it out the airlock. Daewon looked at the dragon again. It had not moved during the whole conversation. But when he stepped closer to the cage, the dragon lifted its head. Just a little. Its eyes met his. The eyes were not the eyes of a broken creature. They were intelligent, alert, watching, waiting for something. Daewon made a decision. He pulled out his credit chip and transferred 3 credits to Zoltar. The Vrexian's skin flashed bright yellow with surprise. Then he laughed again. He said humans were always stupid with their money, always spending it on feelings instead of sense. He picked up the cage with 2 arms and shoved it at Daewon. Zoltar told him the ceremony instructions were on a data chip attached to the cage. He wished Daewon good luck. He would need it. The dragon was useless. Daewon carried the cage through the market. It was lighter than he expected. The dragon inside shifted its weight but did not make any sound. People stared at him. A few laughed. One Krathian warrior spat on the ground as he passed. Krathians were big, had forearms like Vrexians, and loved fighting more than anything else. Daewon ignored them all. He took the elevator up to the engineering levels. His workshop was small, just 3 rooms. 1 for living, 1 for working, 1 for storage. It was not much, but it was his. He unlocked the door and carried the cage inside. He set the cage down on his workbench next to a half-repaired navigation computer. Then he opened the cage door. The dragon did not move. Daewon sat down on his stool. He said the dragon could come out if it wanted, or it could stay in the cage. Either way was fine. He was not going to hurt it. He turned back to his work. The navigation computer needed a new processing core. He had one in storage pulled from a wreck last month. He got up to get it. When he came back, the dragon had moved. It was sitting on the edge of the cage looking around the workshop. Its head turned toward him, then toward the tools on the wall, then toward the small window that showed the stars outside. Daewon smiled. He sat back down and started working. He talked while he worked. It was an old habit. When you lived alone, sometimes you talked to yourself, or to your tools, or to a dragon. He told the dragon about the navigation computer. It came from an exploration ship that hit an asteroid field. The crew survived, but the ship did not. He bought the wreck cheap and had been pulling parts from it for weeks. This computer was the best piece. Once he fixed it, he could sell it for 200 credits. Maybe 300 if he found the right buyer. The dragon made a small sound. Not quite a growl. Not quite a chirp. Just a sound that meant it was listening. Daewon kept talking. He told the dragon about Earth, about growing up in Seoul, about learning to fix machines from his grandfather, about leaving home to work on space stations because the pay was better and the galaxy was big and interesting. He told the dragon about Nexus Station 7, how it was loud and dirty and full of criminals and traitors, and people just trying to survive. How it was not home, but it was not bad either. How he liked fixing things because when something was broken, the problem was clear. You just had to find it and solve it. The dragon climbed out of the cage completely. It stretched its wings. They were torn, but it stretched them anyway. Then it walked across the workbench. Its claws clicked on the metal surface. It stopped next to Daewon's hand and sat down. Daewon looked at it. Up close, he could see that the dragon was thin. Too thin. Its scales were dull because it was not getting the right food. The tears in its wings were old injuries that never healed properly. He made another decision. He went to his computer terminal and searched the station database for information about Drakthar biology. There was not much. The species was almost extinct. But there were some old files about their diet and care. Drakthar needed high-protein food. Fresh meat was best, but synthetic meat would work. They needed mineral supplements. Calcium for bones. Iron for blood. They needed warm places to sleep and clean water to drink. Daewon checked his credits. 24 left. He ordered supplies from the station market. Food, supplements, medical gel for the wing tiers. It cost him 15 credits. He would have 9 left until payday. Not enough for the power converter anymore, but that was okay. The converter could wait. While he waited for the delivery, he made a nest for the dragon. He used thermal blankets from his bed and arranged them in a corner of the workshop. He put a heat lamp nearby. He filled a bowl with clean water. The dragon watched everything he did. Its eyes followed his movements. It did not look broken anymore. It looked curious. When the supplies arrived, Daewon prepared the first meal. Synthetic meat cut into small pieces. Mineral powder mixed with water. He put the food in a dish and set it in front of the dragon. The dragon sniffed the food. Then it ate, slowly at first, then faster. It finished everything in the dish. When it was done, it made that small sound again. Daewon thought it might be a thank you. He smiled and went back to work. The dragon curled up in the thermal blanket nest and closed its eyes. For the first time since he bought it, the dragon looked peaceful. Daewon worked late into the night. He finished installing the processing core in the navigation computer. He tested it. It worked perfectly. He shut down his tools and stretched. His back hurt from sitting too long. He looked at the data chip that Zoltar had mentioned. The one with ceremony instructions. It was still attached to the cage. He picked it up and read it. The instructions were simple. Place the dragon in an open space. Declare your intention to fight. Strike first, the dragon would respond. Defeat it to prove your worth. Daewon looked at the sleeping dragon in the corner. Small, thin, tired. He deleted the data chip. Then he went to bed. Tomorrow he would buy more food. He would fix the dragon's wings. He would help it get strong again. That was enough ceremony for him.